Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's Writers' Workshop. Our topic tonight is Mastering Your Manuscript, and I'm thrilled to welcome back local author Julian Parrott.
Well, thank you, Salem, and thank you to the Champaign Library, and thank you, everyone, for popping over this evening. I must admit, first off, that I am not a writing teacher, which will be very evident in a few moments. But I am a writer, and I think we're probably all writers, hence the fact that you guys are here. So I think we've all been writers for a long time, right? So the sense that when you were in grade school, in high school, college, you were writing papers, stories. Some English teacher made you read and write poetry. In your teenage years, you probably wrote song lyrics. Somebody writes creative shopping lists. So we're all kind of enmeshed in writing. And I think it's one thing that I think it can actually be quite helpful if you begin to see yourself as a writer, because you've been in the field for a long, long time. I still hesitate to call myself a writer because I work full-time for the university as an administrator. I write a lot, but it would probably not excite anybody, the kind of writing that we do with emails and memos and reports. However, you know, I always look for opportunities to inject some sort of dramatic descriptions, maybe a bit of humor. So looking for those creativity opportunities. So it's a little bit about me. I want to hear a little bit about you. I should tell you a little bit about, I suppose, my more creative writing background. I have written 3 great American novels. None of them I finished or published. I did completed a spy thriller that I thought was a gritty, classic kind of spy thriller set in the UK until some early readers told me it was a romance. And that kind of struck me by surprise. So I have completed and published 1 novel. I have the second novel, which is a sequel to the first. We're at the publisher and undergoing their editing process right now. I love my characters, so I'm writing a third novel with my 2 characters from my first book. It's called Fit for Purpose. And I've already started kind of thinking about a completely different novel for a 4th novel, and even the very, very kind of basic bones of a 5th novel out there as well. So I'm always thinking about writing, thinking about plots, and thinking about characters. You know, just listening to the conversation here about U.S. Army's tanks causing much concern in Cold War Germany by plowing through crops and knocking down trees. And I actually remember, I grew up in the UK, and I remember that issue popping up in the UK newspapers. But you know, there's kind of great stories there. So we're all sort of embedded, I think, in the kind of creative ideas that can inspire our writing. So as I said, I'm Julian Parrott. Who do we have here? Sir in the front row? Kent. And what are you interested in writing, and where are you with your writing now?
I do screenwriting, so I'm working on
Oh, excellent. What kind of genre?
Film noir, I guess.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, great. So, Ken, welcome. Yes.
I'm Jessica, and I am very, very new to fictional writing, I guess. I'm very interested in historical fiction. I have a full-time job as a high school teacher, so I'm pretty drained mentally, so I don't get to write nearly as much as I would like, but yeah, I'm kind of jumping in.
Oh, great. I'm sure you've got some great stories from high school that maybe will pop out,
I'm Marty. I've been retired for quite a while, but I was primary caregiver for my husband till he passed away. And so this past year, I've been exploring a lot of different things. I can't ever say that I did much fiction writing. I did a lot of academic writing, administrative writing. So it's been a way to sort of just see what I could do. And these two were in a class with me at Parkland. That's how we all met recently. And we're trying to keep the juices flowing, so to speak. And so I had to write a little story, and I'm still working on it. But we'll see what happens.
And that's great, because essentially the act of writing, obviously, is kind of a solitary, lonely kind of process. But sitting around, discussing, chatting, sharing in a group can be incredibly encouraging. So well done, you guys.
I'm Anne, and I'm one of those English teachers who makes people write poetry. But I teach college freshmen mostly, and I think I'm trying to write a novel right now, but it's going very slow. Teaching argument and informational writing is maybe drained all that out of my head, so I'm trying to get it back. So I'm hoping this will help.
Hi, in the green. Oh, good, good. And you were at in the fall, weren't you? So was it fantasy, sci-fi? Sci-fi. Right. Good. Well, congratulations on finishing. It's a huge accomplishment. You know. Yeah. Yep. Good. Good for you. Congratulations. Sure. All right. Well, maybe Jack will inspire you to pick up a pen. Yes, ma'am. I think I remember you from the fall too.
Yeah, yes.
So, well, thank you for coming back again.
Are we supposed to be saying something?
Yes. Who are you? What are you kind of writing?
My name is Sheila Perkins, and I'm doing mystery writing.
Mystery.
And I guess my question is this publishing piece. I'm getting close to the end, or what I think is the end, and it may be the end with this publishing component that I have to enter next. And I just wanted to get some of your feedback on that,
Good.
if I could.
All right. Thank you.
That I'm actually Julian's wife, and I also like to write. He's very versatile in terms of writing in all different situations, and I am retiring soon, so I'm thinking I'm going to like put myself on a schedule, and it's like a morning writing schedule, and complete some things I'd like to. I think that something about like in the back of your mind, like, oh, but I want to write. I want to be a writer, and I'm not doing that thing, and finding a way to do that thing is my goal.
One of, I think, my tips for everybody, particularly as you feel like you're completing or have completed your writing assignment, is find people that will be merciless, brutal editors. That's one of mine right there.
Don't kill the dog. That's advice in general.
Yes, sir.
My name's Chris. I work at a record label here in town. I've done kind of some writing in the past related to that. Like we have a new album coming out, more like, just writing the story of that record. But I've never really done much creative writing, so that's kind of trying to push myself to like finish some sort of like short story or something like that at this point.
Oh, great, great. So do you write like the liner notes as well for the?
No, we usually, it's kind of more on like the marketing side, like kind of write like a page or two just to send out to different journalists and things like that, just kind of talking about how the record came together, what inspired it, and different things like that, to just kind of inform how the, other people then write about it from there.
All right. Which is a skill that if you are thinking about moving into looking for an agent or a publisher, that is something that is going to be another aspect of your writing. So you've completed the novel, then you're going to have to try to get, in a way, essentially sell it. Yes, ma'am.
My name's Louise. I've written a bunch of novels. One of them I think is publishable, so my next step is to try and find a publisher. And I made the short list on first pages with it. I think it's got potential, and I'm currently working on another novel about the Dutch resistance in World War II.
Oh, excellent. And the completed novel, what's that about?
It's about a young man with PTSD.
Oh, okay. Hello.
My name's Deborah McMillan, and I'm in the gardening. I've been an active gardener for 21 years, and two outlets that I can write for. One's a horticultural society I belong to in New England. Other is the local master garden group, and I enjoy learning about the gardens that I got for the groups, the gardens that I've gone to, the history, and in the history, find an interesting plant and you find out who discovered it, and they had an interesting life. And trying to learn to write, write them as stories, not just kind of straight out facts when you write, but I'm trying to incorporate the interest for the gardens. Story that hopefully will be interesting to someone.
You know, and it's another really good example of when you looking for inspirational creativity in your other passions, because when you think about sort of horticulture, or you think about strangely how important horticulture was to world economies, and you think about how people are trying to sneak rubber plants from the Amazon to Western Europe and North America. So basically trying to break monopolies of certain areas. You know, you can jump into your other passions and really find kind of a very, very rich vein of creativity. It could be romance, it could be thriller. So lots of sort of, again, topics to mine there. So thank you.
I'm Mary. I got to spend a couple months with folks in the front in the relative writing class. I'm interested in cozy mysteries, and it's less about, well, you have to know who done it, but it's really what we do. Are they the bad guy or the dead person the bad guy? So I'm trying to keep life pushed aside so I can do what I want to do, and life doesn't want me to do that.
Okay, good. Who's inspired you in the cozy mystery genre?
This is kind of embarrassing, but there's a Kindle Unlimited
Very good.
Amanda Italy. So her main series and her main characters, I don't have problem. It's like, no, my main characters are going to have a little bit of maturity to them, thank you. So that's where I'm at.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Cielo, and I'm new, I would say, but I started a book right after college. I didn't like copy and get showed. So when I moved here 4 years ago, I wanted to find a writing group that could continue, but I found poetry. And now I'm in poetry.
Oh.
But I want to finish that book, so I work on it a little bit at a time. But poetry always comes to my head. So then I keep
Of poetry? Oh, well, congratulations. Well, good, good. And
I'm Sarah. I teach psychology at Fleming. I write textbooks, so, but I've had a novel series in my head for a long time, and trying to finish up the next textbook in order to make some progress pulling the novel.
oh, great. And what is your genre? The
Genre kind of way. It's not, I don't know what genre, sort of intergenerational relationships between mothers and daughters. Love this one relationship. I don't know what.
Well, thank you for sharing, everyone. And again, as I said at the top of the chat, is that everybody's a writer. And so I, again, sort of embrace it. And people ask you, what are you doing? What do you do? What are your hobbies? You're a writer, because you are. And it's so important. I love the idea of when the first people sort of huddled together in a cold, damp cave around a fireplace in a scary, dark night on the savannah, that they got together in an act of creativity, which was first sticking your hand in the ashes of the fireplace and sticking them on the wall and creating art. And then as we began to vocalize and develop speech, there was a special place in that society for somebody who could sit around that campfire and entertain by telling stories. It could have been the hunt that day. It could have been about why are the stars up there and why does that big object in the sky move across the sky in a number of days. So again, it's something that's elemental in us as people. We want to tell stories. We have a desire to inform and enlighten and entertain. And again, it doesn't really matter whether it's a vampire series or a witchy thriller or a cozy mystery or a spy story or a classic romance. You are reaching into sort of your own creativity, your desire to tell a story and entertain other people. And the fact, again, that you want to do that is kind of putting yourself out there. And that needs to be sort of applauded, because some of you are very close to completing. Some of you have completed stories, poetry books and novels. And it's something that most people haven't done and will never do. Not because they don't share your talents. Many people do. It's just that they are not motivated enough and don't have that kind of desire to put yourself out there and try. So again, many congratulations on that. So, where are you on your writing journeys? So some of you are completed, some of you are close to completing. Maybe some of you are sort of what I'm calling noodling, is maybe you're writing for exercise. You're writing as part of a class or a group. You're looking around every day, sort of moments. You hear an interesting conversation in a coffee shop, and you jot that down. You're thinking about your characters. So coffee shop conversations, always take a notebook with you. You're thinking about characters. You're thinking about plots. I walk to work, it takes me about half an hour. And I'm constantly thinking about plots. My characters have become kind of a part of me. I almost think my characters are real people. I often find myself in a situation, I think, what would Mia do there? Or what would Tom think about this? What are they ordering in that restaurant? What cocktail are they going to have at that bar? It's quite bizarre, I know, but to me, they feel fully formed. And it takes me a moment when they pop in my head to think, oh, these are people that I created. Fully formed with their own hopes and desires and dreams and motivations. So when I'm walking to work and I may see something, or maybe from my writing the night before, I'm thinking, I'm stuck in that plot, or that doesn't feel authentic, that thing doesn't feel real. How would they respond? So often when I'm walking to work, this is going on in my head. So, constantly sort of thinking, plotting, noodling. Sometimes the first thing I'll do when I get to the office, and occasionally I'll actually write something down when I'm walking, but I'll fire off an email to myself with a line of dialogue, or a plot twist, or a humorous sort of comeback that one of the characters have said. So, where are you on your writing sort of journey? Because it is a journey. It does have a start. Maybe some of you are kind of packing. Maybe you're firing up and gunning the motor on the car to head off for your writing journey. Some of you are maybe on the airport, flying home or unpacking. So I'm going to sort of bounce some ideas of where you are right now. I want to talk about editing. Oh, there's a bunny rabbit. Look at that. Distracted. Squirrel. I want to talk about editing a little later because it's incredibly important. And again, as I said, I'm not a writing teacher, so I'm kind of sharing with you kind of my sort of process. And I even struggle to think, do I have a writing process? Because I know some people are incredibly disciplined, and I'll talk about that in a moment as well. And some people are very ill-disciplined. And as my wife and my family would tell you, I am ill-disciplined. But editing is something to really, really sort of plan for. And then, are you at the stage now where you're looking for an agent? Are you looking for a publisher? Are you thinking about, okay, in kind of what sort of media do I really want a publisher? Have you done all this and you're awaiting, your Booker Prize to be delivered by UPS? So hopefully you all see yourself in that kind of model there right now. This is one of my, I wouldn't say he's my favorite author, but again, I certainly have received quite a bit of inspiration from this fellow, Ian Fleming. And Ian Fleming is famous because he created the best known fictional character in history, James Bond. And James Bond only appeared in 12 of Fleming's novels and 2 collections of short stories. So his writing period was not that long. I'll explain why in a moment. And he came to writing kind of a circuitous route. He was a trained journalist. Prior to World War II, he spent a few years editing and writing for Reuters in Europe at an incredibly hectic time with the growth of fascism and the collapsing democracies. Possibly, he even used his journalistic writing style to write reports for British intelligence, which got him in World War II as administrator in one of multiple Britain's spy agencies at that time, and remembered everything that he had come across. He wasn't an agent himself, he ran agents. But he would hear stories. He was incredibly creative and plotted. If anybody knows Operation Mincemeat or saw the movie, that started off with an Ian Fleming idea. If anybody's seen James Bond's Casino Royale or read the book, that was an idea that Fleming had live, watching Nazis play cards in a casino in neutral Lisbon in World War II. But why should we look to Fleming as an author? Because he was incredibly disciplined. One of the things, if you want to be that writer and you have that time and you have that discipline, I think we could take a page or 100 or so, literally, from Ian Fleming, is that Fleming always made time to write. And that's something we all need to do if we're going to finish, if we're going to start, if we've reached that moment where you're stymied. That's why so many novels are put in the bedside table or on the thumb drive and put away and gather dust, and that momentum is lost, is make time for that writing. Kind of force it in a way. Fleming only wrote Bond books in a period of 6 weeks every winter. He was fortunate enough to have a house in Jamaica, and he would retire to Jamaica for 3 months in a year and knock out a James Bond novel in 6 weeks. How did he do that? He woke up reasonably early, had a very light breakfast, would go to the corner of his bedroom at first, then he had a little hut on his estate, and write 3,000 words until about lunchtime or a little later, every day, Monday through Friday, hungover or not. 3,000 words would be his goal for the day. He wouldn't edit. We'll talk about that. He'd stop when he felt like it, 3,000 words. Again, remember, he's got that journalistic background as well, kind of writing to deadline, writing with that cadence. So he would stop, go for a swim, have lunch, and then do the other stuff that Ian Fleming would do, that I'm going to say, don't be like Ian Fleming, which is, he's already started, 80 cigarettes a day and a bottle of gin. That's why he only had 14 James Bond books in him, because he died at 54 and left an incredibly sort of influential canon of work behind him. So first thing we should do is take that, set aside that time. Whether it's the morning, like Fleming, most of us can't do that, but we can always carve out time. Lunchtime, evening time. My wife and I have very different writing styles. I can write anywhere. She can be watching a TV program, and I can be sitting on the couch with my laptop and writing. My wife has to have the house really quiet, no distractions, and kind of a given period. So again, you've got to find what works for you. How are you organizing your writing? Not, where is your laptop, or blimey, is anybody writing on a typewriter or longhand? Whatever, again, works for you. But how are you organizing what you're writing about? Have you or are you outlining the plot? Do you have a flow chart? Are you using sticky notes? And then you can visualize your story emerging on your whiteboard in your office or your lounge. Are you writing what I call kind of organically? So you've got the elements of a plot. You think, okay, this is my beginning, this is my end, and I'm going to work across that arc. Don't feel you have to write linearly. Yes, your story really needs to have a beginning, a middle, and an end, unless you're doing something really kind of avant-garde-ish. But do you have to write that way? Don't feel that you need to be constricted by that. And particularly, I think when you get stuck, because I think everybody will get stuck at times. Again, how many people who have that novel on their bedside table are like, oh, it was going to be a brilliant novel, but then, I was hit by this, blimey, this terrible case of writer's block I could never get through. You can force it. If you're writing, write about something else. If that plot is clunky, or you're thinking, I don't know how I can get my character out of this, because you're writing organically perhaps and you haven't spreadsheeted it, that's fine. So go and write something else. When I was writing my first novel, I kind of did it backwards. I was inspired. The end of my first novel came to me in a real life moment. I thought, wow, this would be a great end of a spy thriller. Two guys wrestling on a narrowboat going over an aqueduct in the UK after an exciting narrowboat chase at 4 miles an hour. So I thought, well, I initially thought, wouldn't that be a great thing for James Bond? Instead of flying off to Jamaica or Hong Kong or Macau or Rio de Janeiro, why not North Wales? Writing that. And I wrote that scene, and then it kind of poured out of me. And I thought, oh my gosh, I've got this ending scene, I've got this character, and I've got the bad guy, and I kind of worked back from that. And then I thought, well, my good guy needs a love interest, right? So then the love interest. So I thought, okay, I'm going to have to develop a female character. How are they going to meet? So I thought, well, I kind of liked the idea of a kind of a meet cute. I'd been writing in airports for a few years, and I thought, holy moly, an airport. Why not throw these two people by sitting next to each other in a plane? And one of them's chatty and one of them isn't. But over the course of a transatlantic flight, those kind of barriers are broken down. Hang on a second, why should they have barriers? So I've got to go back and develop a backstory, right? Why are these two people emotionally kind of contained? So all of a sudden, my characters have backstories, have history. The same thing for the bad guy. And so I had an end and I had a beginning, and then I realized my end is a false end, so I had to go and create a real end, because now I'm writing romance. And so the end is no longer going to be the spy thriller, it's going to be the romantic thriller. And so again, don't feel that you are constrained. This is titled Mastering Your Manuscript, right? So don't let your manuscript be the master of you. Find what works, and get those moments. Again, don't necessarily think, okay, I heard that great piece of dialogue in the coffee shop. It's not going to fit where I'm writing now. Just write it. You may have some of these odd scenes that you're inspired by something you saw or it just popped into your head. And then maybe you have a bunch of these scenes in kind of a quiver. And as you're going on and you think, aha, that scene in the shop, this is a great time to throw it in. And you may need to go back and tweak, what was happening in your plot, in your novel, to bring in that scene. And then you can move on. So look for those opportunities. So if you ever get stuck, or you're really you're really stuck with a bit of plotting, move to a different scene, but just keep writing. Because I think the worst thing you can do is stop writing. Because again, you are not going to finish a perfect novel. Is there a perfect novel? So again, as you're writing particularly, again, don't let the perfect be enemy of the good. Just keep writing, because you can fix it. But I would say don't try to fix it in terms of editing as you're writing it, because I think if you're stuck and you think, I'll spend a couple of days editing, I think that can add to that lack of momentum. And actually, back to Mr. Fleming. Fleming never edited his novels until they were done. He'd write in 6 weeks, put it away in the manuscript, fly back to rather dull grey, early spring London, get the manuscript out and start editing. And that kind of worked for me. Again, it may not work for everyone, but I do find, I think that kind of sense of I've got to keep going back and editing, I've got to make this perfect as if it's going to be graded, at that time, I do think that can stymie your momentum. So push on, get the thing finished, but then you can edit. You can edit for a long time then. Other thing that I think you can do, again, that kind of journalistic sense of I'm writing to a deadline. And most of us do not have deadlines. Most of us don't have a nice big fat retainer from or an advance from a publishing company that's going to demand your manuscript by July the 1st. More's the pity, right? But if you have a deadline, I want to finish this novel by May Day. I want to finish it by July the 1st. I want to finish it by my birthday. Set that deadline. And again, I think that's going to inspire you to set aside time for writing, to not slow down when you've got those kind of a little bit of writer's block or plot blocking coming in. So again, just simple, I think, basic things just to keep it going, keep the process, keep your creativity flowing. Because there's no right way to write. It really is a very personal issue. Many of your stories are going to pull from personal experiences. So again, you have to find out what works for you. But as you're writing, you're writing, some of it could be very personal, that you don't want to share with anybody. But obviously, in a way, we're back to the people in the cave. We want to share what we're writing. We've got a story to tell. So one of the things, again, as you're writing, is know your audience. Who are you writing for? When you imagine your book on a shelf, who do you imagine coming and picking that book up and flipping through it? If you have a book group, what kind of book group is it? So again, that was asking a little bit about the genre, because if you know who your audience is, you know who you want your readers to be, that's going to help you reach them. Same thing with your voice. you know, are you writing in a truly kind of unaffected style? Or are you kind of bringing a voice? Are you writing as one of your characters? Again, you know, think about how am I writing? What is my voice? What stories am I telling to my audience? But don't overthink it. You know, if you're writing a story about Elizabethan England, you know, and the closest thing that you've ever been to Elizabethan is some mock Tudor house in Urbana, then don't overthink living in Elizabethan England. Well, really, we don't know anyway, so that's you know, the positive thing. So again, just be creative. You know, one of the great things about Wikipedia is, you know, as you're writing, or if you've done research beforehand, is hang on a second, you know, let me see, what would a 14-year-old girl worn on a summer's day in Elizabethan England? You know, and there you go. And then you've got that sort of opportunity to keep the creative juices flowing and still being authentic as well. The other thing I think that sometimes can cause issues when you're writing is this kind of old sort of chestnut of write what you know. And I think if every writer followed that sort of shibboleth, a lot of writing would be really, really dull, right? Because you know, I wrote a spy thriller. I'm neither a spy or very thrilling. You know, I know a little bit about romance. I have to say that, my wife's here. But you know, we all have imaginations. And this is, again, going back to that creativity. Harness your imagination, harness your creativity, and you know, do it authentically. I do think research is important, but you don't necessarily have to overthink the research if you're writing fiction, because it's fiction. Obviously, if you're writing nonfiction, different matter. But again, use your imagination. If I'm writing about people meeting in a coffee shop in Vienna, then, you know, you can Google it, look at a picture, start describing the picture. You don't have to visit Vienna if you don't have the time or the opportunities to do that. But the important thing, though, is do that kind of depth of research, because it's going to add that authenticity to your writing. The other thing it can do, it gives you additional credibility. That sense that you're creating kind of three-dimensional images along with your three-dimensional characters. It's something that Len Deighton, British spy novelist, screenwriter, thought Ian Fleming did very, very well. Kingsley Amis, another British author writing in a slightly different genre, but did write a James Bond spy thriller, strangely enough. He used to call it the Fleming effect, which is you write about real stuff, which a lot nowadays people call product placement. But Fleming would write about stuff that James Bond would put in his bath. And he wouldn't say James Bond dropped a sweet-smelling bath cube in his bath. Fleming would say James Bond dropped a Floris, lime and ginger bath cube. And immediately, you've actually given the character a little depth. We know a little bit more about James Bond, is that he liked Walther PPKs. He also liked Floris bath products. And, you know, what does that tell you about the man? But it also gives you a sense of reality. So, you know, don't say, you know, my character jumped in the car and drove off. What should you say? he got into his Porsche and gunned the 3.1 litre engine, span his 18-inch mag wheels as he left the parking lot. And all of a sudden, you got that picture in your mind. If you say the car, you probably got this kind of dull block thing that, kids draw in grade school. But immediately you've created an image. You've created authenticity. So look for those opportunities to bring that in. It also gives you, as the author, an additional sense of authority. For some reason, my characters fly a few times over the Atlantic. And I like throwing the name of the airline, the plane, and its engines there. So, my characters aren't just taken off from O'Hare. The giant Airbus A387 with its 4 Rolls-Royce Trent engines thunders down the north runway at Chicago O'Hare. I would check to see if it's north or east or west. So again, all of a sudden, the reader thinks, oh, this guy knows what he's talking about. So again, look for those opportunities. And again, they're really kind of nice techniques too, if you're looking for something to write. That sense of, how do I start moving things forward? Let me describe what I'm seeing outside of the window. Let me describe the shop. Let me describe what they're wearing. Would my character wear jeans from Costco? Would they wear, jeans that are branded? Because what do I want my audience, what do I want my reader to take away by that character? So again, simple devices that add fabric, add texture, make that character appear very real, again, in the minds of your readers and your audience. And again, you can create that connection from the audience to your character. It's pretty easy to create characters we don't like. What they wear, maybe they have overdosed themselves in some cologne. But again, the same thing for the characters you want to have that connection with. So again, how your audience is going to take this character. So look at those kind of opportunities. So it makes people feel like they're invested in your characters. It makes them want to turn the page. What's going to happen next? So we all want to have sort of the moments or the moments, and it's hard to create those because you want your audience to worry about the character. Oh my gosh, the character's been locked in a box and they're running out of air. It was like, I don't care about that person. Then you're kind of losing your audience. So you want to create the tension and bring your readers in there, make them feel it, make them live it with you there. So you want to try the hook 'em. Usually you want to kind of have that kind of explosive start of your novel. Get them in, like a good newspaper article. It's going to have a hook, or you're not going to carry on reading the story. So again, immediately from the get-go, there's going to be something in the story that is going to make your audience want to carry on reading it. When you introduce and flesh out your characters, it's going to make your audience connect with them, whether they're good characters, whether they're bad characters, whether they're empathetic characters. You don't just want to have, kind of a cardboard cutout villain. Why are they the villain? Are they the villain? You want to have some empathy with all your characters. So we've hooked them, We've got exciting stuff. We've got our audience. They're sharing in the shock horror moments. The tension is building. Maybe there's some awe moments. It's the kiss. It's the touch of the little fingers as they reach for the same coffee cup. Your journey now has that extra person in the back seat, and it's your audience, it's your reader. So now, as we move forward, we need to come to the end of the novel. And this is one of those things that I think we've probably all been there, whether it's writing the academic paper in college, in high school, whether it's our novels or our short stories. It's like, I'm almost done, right? I can feel I've lived with and dreamt about for years or months or 6 weeks. I'm almost there. And it's like, pow, done. And now is probably the time you want to slow it down. Because I'm sure we've all read big name novels. And you think, hang on a second, it ended in 2 pages? They built all this up and it's like, pow! They discover this, so that person died, and you feel cheated. And sometimes you feel like the characters have been cheated, but they have not had the ending they deserved. So if you've plotted it out, or it's happening organically, and you see the light at the end of the tunnel there, don't rush through it. Again, treat your characters with respect, kind of treat your audience with respect. And again, I'm speaking personally. Don't have this incredible novel that's very intricate, the kind of mystery novel where there's been so many red herrings and so many characters, and the audience thinks, aha, this person did it. And all of a sudden, pow, a new character emerges, kind of Deus Ex Machina, and that's the end of the novel. Again, I think we feel cheated when that happens. So think through, okay, all my stories, all my plotting, all my characters, is the ending logical? Is it realistic? If you're writing medieval history and an alien comes down and takes, your character off to, Zeus 7, is that really the logical ending of your story? So look for those kind of, again, is it authentic? Does it feel real? Does it feel part of your plotting? Do you already have that sequel in mind? Are you leaving them with a cliffhanger so they go out and buy a sequel? And I think you don't have to do that, because I hate that. Did anybody watch The Last of Us? A fascinating sort of TV series. I don't know the video game. But, I knew they were going to do a second series, so I knew the final episode was going to be disappointing, right? Although there's some really interesting sort of character stuff. But again, that idea that, okay, it wasn't really just one series. We're moving to a second season there. But again, I think an end should be kind of an end that way. And then, in a way, when your readers close that book, and put it on their bookshelf, what kind of ideas do you want them to take away from your book? Are they thinking about it? How are they talking to their friends about this book that they just read? Are there some messages that you want to take away there? So again, I think this goes back to one of the things that, why do you want to write? And who's your audience? How are you going to entertain and inform? My text-heavy editing. Somebody should have edited me. So, Okay, you've done that end. Woohoo! My characters are this or that, or it's concluded. Now I'm going to edit. And so you want to be your own hardest critic to start off with. So you want to be critical and merciless. And I know that there were paragraphs that I kind of labored over. There were paragraphs that I thought were beautiful. There were jokes that I labored to get a zinger a character would have in a piece of dialogue. But sometimes they just didn't fit. They just didn't work. And it was really tough to copy, to cut them out of the story. I would often put them in other buckets because I think, you know what, I can use that some other time. So be a merciless editor. Read your story. Read it out loud. Because you will actually come across things when you read it that you'll miss with your eyes as you're scanning. Because you've written this so much. It could be a spelling mistake. It could be the wrong word. It could be a grammar mistake. It's like a trick of the eye. You won't see it. You read it, you'll catch it. So read out loud. Read it from the perspective of the reader, your audience. Again, what's the voice? What's the authenticity? Does this sound real and logical? It's not a college paper. You know, I know that sometimes as writers, we like to be all writerly, but sometimes shorter words, shorter sentences will do. You know, the classic thing as you're writing and editing is show, don't tell. At this point in time, when you've done your first big edit or your second big edit, now's the time to bring in other folks. And don't rely on family members because they're family members. And, you know, they think, oh, Dad's written a book. Or, you know, my sibling's written a book. It's great. You know, there's a couple of spelling mistakes here, but don't change a thing. That's not what you want to hear. You want to hear, this is the problem with it. This scene doesn't work. As one of my readers pointed out, you have these events happening over the Christmas period, and you don't mention Christmas. So it's like, oh, yeah. So I had to write a Christmas scene. So find close friends or family who are going to be kind of the unvarnished critic. Because their input is going to be incredibly helpful. Not just a couple of them, you know, look for 4 or 5 or 6 of them. Look for people who you think are in your audience. Look for people who read a lot and maybe are bringing a different genre's eyes to your book because they may not recognize kind of the tropes or the characters or the classic kind of story arc that you're writing about. But that way they can bring different perspectives. But don't take it personally. If when, you know, that paragraph that you labored over, they say, you know, this should be changed, this doesn't work. Or, you know, that word needs to go. Or I don't understand what happened here. That's something my readers always tell me. Because again, you know, sometimes when you're writing, your hands are not moving as fast as your brain, particularly if you type like that. So I think I've explained something perfectly. And when I've read it, I think I explained it perfectly. But my readers will say, I don't know what's going on here. And then when you look at it, you think, oh yeah, you know, I've missed out words that my brain was putting in there. So that could be tremendously helpful. I write in a very British style. It took me a long time as a student at the University of Illinois to have the idea that the passive voice is something that is a no-no here, and something that I'd never heard of before called a run-on sentence. My own little personal joke there. So watch the passive voice, and again, you can catch it in your editing. Other thing, and I'm sure anybody who's taught students these days, is don't over-rely on spell check, don't rely on grammar check. It's going to miss some howlers. So that's why you and your readers need to read this. Edit, revise, edit, revise, edit, revise. Keep your readers working. You're your friends. They're working for nothing, maybe a coffee or a beer, but their input is vital. Another thing that could possibly be helpful is have a second tier of readers. So you've gone through your own personal edits, your readers have done some edits and revisions, but now they could fall into the same kind of trap that we've all fallen into. They're familiar with your novel. They're familiar with maybe some of the errors, some sticky plot points still. So get another bunch of readers, some fresh eyes, go through that process again. So then you are ready. Now you have mastered your manuscript. It's not perfect. It's not the great American novel, but you are pleased with it. And you'll get that sense. When you've read it again, you flip through it and you think, you know what, this feels like a book that I could buy. I could imagine myself running in the airport in the bookshop thinking, oh, I like the cover of that, a lot of gold and red on it and a gun, and so I'm going to grab that and read it on the plane. And you think, you know what, my book feels like that. It reads like that. So then you've got the sort of the decision to do I do this? Do I find a professional editor and bounce it to them for editing and maybe some publication advice? The structure and the format, again, when they say don't sweat the small stuff, this actually I think is small stuff. Because if you write longhand in fountain pen, God love you, but no publisher's going to want that these days. They want this, which is, and again, it's not complicated. Length of your novel, generally between 80 and 90,000 words. All your word processing programs have word counts, so please don't, go through page by page counting. It's pretty easy to do. Absolutely no reason to have anything other than a regular standard sheet of paper. The industry standard is usually Times New Roman, 12 point. When you're submitting, it's usually double space on the page. They like page numbers. Usually new paragraphs are indented, and you don't justify a line of stuff to the left. I argued with my dissertation advisor about two things. One was the Oxford comma. I love the Oxford comma. My dissertation advisor hated it, made me take them all out. He was a two-space after the period guy. I changed my dissertation twice. My dissertation was written under the APA style, and while I was finishing the damn thing, would you believe it, the APA style came out with a new version. I think it was version 6, and guess what it allowed? Oxford comma and one space after a period. So I went through my entire dissertation adding back commas and killing spaces. Generally, that's kind of what they're expecting now. Chapters, new page, chapter 1, chapter 2, justified heading that way. Have a title page, simple, your name, your real name, even if you're using a non-de-plume, the book title, your contact information, and word count. And generally, that is how your manuscript should look and appear. Most submissions will give you specific or additional details. Some of them will want the whole book. Some submissions may want only the first 3 chapters. Try to avoid the temptation of going back and re-editing your first 3 chapters. Because you've got the thing done, don't kind of go there again. And be aware that different publishers or different agents may want different things, but generally this is what they're kind of looking for. All righty, so you're now looking at, I've got the thing done, I've got it kind of looking nice, I've got the basic structure of my manuscript down. It's been edited. I feel really good about this. What do I do now? Well, now you start thinking about, not only are they going to want my first 3 chapters, or they're going to want the novel, they're going to want some kind of sales pitch. So they're going to want a synopsis. And I actually find this quite hard to do, partly because you love your novel. You love all your characters. You spent all that time with them. And trying to kind of distill your 90,000 word novel to 300 words is going to be difficult. So look at how it's done in the back of a novel. Go to a bookshop. Start looking at the novel synopsis there. Look at some of the kind of almost paid reviews of books that you'll see. Look what they're looking for, the plot, the characters, the things that you want to reach to your audience there. This is your elevator pitch, or your escalator pitch. Sorry, I couldn't find a picture of an elevator. So if somebody says, tell me about your book, they really don't want to be listening to you for 40 minutes. So think about what are you going to talk about in your book, and then begin to write it. And again, do that editing, do that revision. All those readers, your little army of readers who now know your book almost as well as you do, and love it almost as much as you do, have them look at the synopsis. Ask them, what do you think my book's about? Why don't you write a synopsis? And then maybe they'll give you some ideas. And again, you will reach the idea of kind of a consensus. This is what my book is. This is the thing that people are taking away. And these are the things I need to bring into my synopsis. Then you've got to get the thing published. So you can check online. There are lots of publishing houses that are looking for submissions. Sometimes they're genre submissions, sometimes they're open. Try to find exactly what they're looking for. The books that you like, the books that in a way you feel kind of are the genre that your book's in, go and find a bunch of publishers that are publishing those books. See if they're accepting submissions. Then you can decide, which kind of way do I want to get published? Or do I not want to publish the thing myself? There's lots of good opportunities that way these days. And in fact, in some of the reading and research I've been doing is very often now, writers are making more money by self-publishing and selling on Amazon than they are from traditional publishers. So again, lots of opportunities these days to get your work out there in front of the audience. Want to plug the May the 3rd part of this series and how to acquire a literary agent, which obviously, you've got some time to finish or polish your book, your novel, and get ready on May the 3rd to learn how to find that agent who is going to sell your book to Penguin. All right. That's it. Happy to chat or have a crack in questions.
Can you just go back to the page, this form? Yes, thank you.
And again, this is kind of basic. Make sure when you're looking at the agencies, the publishers, the agents that are looking for submissions, that you follow their guidelines. But in terms of the actual kind of what they're looking at, it's not going to differ too far from this.
Is that just one-sided page?
Well, you'd be submitting electronically. And please, if there's one piece of advice I can give you, don't write in Comic Sans. Comic Sans. It's a much disliked font.
When you submit to a publisher, can you submit your manuscript to many different at the same time? And I know it's being extremely overtly optimistic that you would have more than one interest in it, but is there any sort of...
No, I think so for submission, that's one of the few moments that you're kind of in the driver's seat is you can send it off to as many as you can. If you get any interest in, that's when you limit the connection to other folks, unless there's a bidding war, which hopefully. That's a really good question, because I did this very naively. I did no research. I just went online, looked at, my book had a British theme, so I looked at British publishers that were taking submissions. I sent it out to, I also sent it out to a bunch of agents. I was really, I'm impetuous. I wanted, agents to be calling me the next day after they received it. So after a week or two of not getting any information back from agents, then I started sending it out to publishers. So I sent it out to about 17 and heard from one a couple of weeks later, and then one other one a few weeks after that. But then I was in that situation. I'd already committed to the to the first publisher that showed any interest whatsoever. So,
And maybe this is a question for the next in the series, but if you have a publisher, do publishers tend to come back and say, we really like this, well, sort of, except we want you to do this? Like, do they look for rewrites, or does it depend on the publisher?
I think it depends on the publisher. My publisher is very kind of like, Penguin up here, my publisher down here. So they edited, and they had some plot suggestions, but they didn't say, we'll give you another few months to rewrite this bit or that bit. Certainly some publishers would go back to you and say, this is great, we love to publish it, but it's going to take a little bit more work. All righty. Well, thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. A big thank you to Julian. That was fantastic. Just a few reminders. Thank you, Julian, for plugging the May 3rd workshop, How to Acquire a Literary Agent. Before that workshop, we will have 2 workshops in April. to celebrate National Poetry Month. So we'll be back in this room on April 5th for Poetry Pointers Part 1. Hope to see you there. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.